We've all heard this concept of being lonely at the top, or how when you're successful, things just feel more lonely. So, if you're a successful entrepreneur, founder, business owner, whether you're online or even you have an in person business, you probably find that your life is pretty lonely. You've grown, you've started this business maybe a couple of years ago, and you're at a point where you've got clients, you've got a couple of things going on, you've got some success, you've got some reviews, you've maybe got a little bit of money in the bank, and you're feeling quite good about yourself. It's 2026, and you've maybe gone through this process in the beginning of the year of thinking about your future and maybe doing some projections, looking at your cash balances, looking at where your life is headed. And no matter what your circumstance is, you probably feel a little bit lonely, especially if you've been, going at it for a long time and going at it hard for a long time. Now, this is something I can relate to. I've been doing this business, or at least my agency, business. I started as a freelancer, something like $9 an hour on Upwork. And now, 11 years later, I'm not on Upwork anymore and doing comfortably six figures a year without too much hassle, without too much effort. And by no means have I figured everything out. By no means have I solved all my problems. In fact, I would say that some of the problems I have are pretty intense, and I would say it's a constant reminder of the fact that I don't feel like I'm anywhere near where I want to be, despite being successful, despite having 3 or 4 years of runway in my bank account in cash, a few investments, and a good set of clients. Even though it's not a lot of clients, but I've got clients who are loyal, they're respectful, they're my ideal clients. These are the clients who are keeping my life afloat, keeping me going, and I'm very happy with them, and they're very happy with me. But, there's this loneliness thing that happened as I started feeling success. Like when I first hit that six figures, there was this loneliness, there was this need that I felt to make friends, there was this need for connection. And I think it's maybe because of just the progress that I've made in my life. If you look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, it's those levels, right? It's like, okay, we want to become self aware, but then, the areas like right at the bottom is like food, shelter, all the basic stuff. And then we start wanting to belong to groups. We start wanting to, go up the ladder. I'm not sure exactly what those levels are, but it's one of those things where I started feeling a little bit less in survival mode. And I think the reason was because, I was working pretty much, I wouldn't say 24/7, but, if I got like 5 or 6 hours of sleep a day, I was kind of lucky. I wasn't going to the gym. I just didn't have the time, or I didn't feel like I had the time. And despite the fact that I was in a relationship, it didn't feel like I had time for the relationship. We would go out and we would, spend time together, but it wasn't productive time. It wasn't quality time. It wasn't time that I felt super connected to that person. Also, I think I just was in a relationship because I wanted to be in a relationship. I wasn't in a relationship because I wanted to be fulfilled. It wasn't something that checked all the boxes, as in, like, oh, this is actually going somewhere. And the reason for that was because my mind was focused on the business. My mind was focused on getting clear of survival mode, of saving money. Although the first couple of years I did not figure out how to save money, despite the fact I was making good money. Even while on Upwork, I just wasn't able to save it, and I couldn't quite figure out why. So saving the money was one thing that I had to solve. The other thing was just the lack of time, because I always felt like I needed to be online. Clients were messaging me at odd times of the day. I live in Thailand, and so my days would go late into the night because client would message me at 3 in the morning, and I'd need to solve their whatever ad campaign or log in to go and check something. Like, it was just dramatically different to how things are now. But I felt like I needed to be on all the time. And this is without even having a following, without having any major responsibility as far as a community goes. I didn't have a community because, like I said, I was just focused on the business all the time. And, I got to that point where I thought, oh, my clients would become my friends. But that didn't happen, right? When you're in a service-based business, most of the time you're doing transactional work for clients, and they're paying you for an X result, or they're paying you for an X item, or they're paying you for an X output. And that's it. Once you're done, you're done. And so I learned very quickly that actually building this relationship was hard. Then the other thing that happened too and this probably happens with you as well, is because of your work, maybe you feel like you need to move out of the original city that you were brought up in or grew up in. So for me, I was brought up in South Africa, lived in Johannesburg. I moved around South Africa a little bit with my parents, also without my parents. It was a lot of transitions that I went through, but also, because of the focus on the business, there was just no time for friends. It was weekends. I was going to see clients. And when I started my business online, especially, it was just like whatever time I could spend online doing the work that clients had asked me to do, I just had to get done. It wasn't a thing of like, oh, let me go spend some time with my friends, because invariably it was like I didn't have money, first of all, to go out and hang out with them, because a night out for dinner or drinks or even a movie would be money that I couldn't keep or I couldn't use for my family or for the business. And so, I felt very stifled and very, very stuck in that process. But despite all of that, I was very happy. And so, if you think about the time paradox, it's one of those things where you've got all the time on your business. You're working. I was working in my business, and just feeling happy about the fact that I was busy, feeling happy about the fact that I was needed, feeling happy about the fact that I was doing work and developing my skill. Now, sure, early on in your career, no matter where you are, no matter what you're doing, whether it's your own business or even if you're working for somebody else, developing those skills is important. But there was no balance. And at the end of the day, what I had designed my life to be was that I didn't require balance, because I ended up loving what I do, and I still love what I do. And there are times now, even when it completely consumes my life, but not in a negative way, because I figured out a couple of things along the way. And I'll get to those in the later on in the episode. But I want to talk about is, in terms of, because of this constant need to be online, or this constant need to be delivering for clients, time is a major issue, right? No time for holidays and no money for holidays. No time for friends, no money to go out, for a night out. Um, Relationship is stagnant, even with family or whatever, because it just wasn't a priority. And in my case, it was okay. I felt like that was okay because I was just doing what was necessary. And that created a couple of things down the line. One is I just became socially isolated in terms of not really knowing what was going on in social circles, not really understanding what's going on in politics or what's going on just with things in general that people are talking about. Now, as an entrepreneur, I never really cared about the weather. I never really cared about politics or newsworthy things. I have this attitude where if something is important to me, it'll come to me. Somebody will mention it, or maybe it'll show up in my feed if I'm lucky. And so, I didn't make it a thing where I was like updated all the time, because again, keeping up to date with all those things is a time consuming exercise. And it takes mental bandwidth to understand and to think about. And then if it's negative stuff in the news or negative things that are going on in the world, it creates this anxiety. It creates all this hatred or this feeling of just, why isn't the world a better place, right? At least that's what I used to feel. And because of those sort of things not being updated in my mind, and me not being updated on just the way life is going right now for others, that created a challenge in terms of relationships as well, or love type relationships. Because if let's say the person you're with is interested in some of those things, if they're talking about those things with their friends, if there's, oh, this is the new trend in fashion, or oh, this is the new trend with this, or oh, have you seen these new set of speakers or these new sneakers that you, it's like I just was never up to date with any of those things. Even with series, watching TV series, it just was never a thing where I was updated and I was discussing those things with my friends. It just never happened. I never bothered with those type of topics. I never bothered with those type of conversations. And so, it becomes difficult, because then what do you talk to your loved one about? What do you talk to your friends about? What do you talk to your family about? Right? I don't follow football. Like, sport is a big thing that people follow. And so it's like, well, I don't watch basketball. I don't watch football. I don't follow any of the sports, really. I used to be a Formula One fanatic, but that fell away many, many years ago because I was like, there's too many updates. It's a fucking race every 2 or 3 weeks, maybe even every week sometimes now. And it's like, eh, again, just to take time away from what I was focused on, or the things that were important to me. So again, socially it's really difficult to keep conversations with people because they're talking about that stuff, and well, as entrepreneurs we may not be able to plug in to those conversations because that's not really what we're talking about, right? As entrepreneurs, especially online entrepreneurs, what's important to us? We want to grow an audience, we want to drive traffic to our offers, we want to develop those offers, we want to talk to our clients and solve our clients' problems, we want to get better on camera, we want to, grow have a growth mindset and focus on growing our mindset. We want to read books that are interesting in terms of maybe psychology or sales, or these are the things that I was following, or these are the things that I was keeping up to date with, right? As an advertiser, somebody who's driven, I don't know, at this point, millions of dollars of traffic and made millions of dollars for my clients, that's what I was focused on. It's like, oh, what are the updates around Facebook and Meta and Instagram? What are the updates that I need to care about in terms of creative, right? These are all very business topics, very online marketing, very sales driven decisions and updates that I'm keeping up to date with. But not everybody in my circle was familiar with those things. They didn't even care. In fact, I would say most of my friends, probably most of my family, they don't know even what I do. It's like if I had to describe to them, I would say, and usually I'm just really blunt about it and say digital marketing. And I let them assume, because there's no way the conversation is going to go forward because they're just not into it. They're just not going to discuss it. They're just not, people are just not, well, some of the people that I've spoken to are just not keen on that, you know, unless they actually want to dig in, and maybe there is somebody who's growing a following, or maybe there's somebody who has some level of experience, then okay, maybe they would ask some questions. But usually that was not the case. Also in your business, if you're dealing with clients, you're dealing with just team members, you're most likely fighting fires, right? You're working in the business and you're the delivery guy, you're the person who's responsible for everything. And so, it's just keeping you occupied all the time. It's what you think of when you go to bed, it's what you think of when you wake up. It's just everything that's going on. Now, there's a reason that I spoke about all of that really, really quickly, and I had, a quick tone and a little bit more of a panicked sort of speed in my speaking. Because what I realized is, you hear online, you hear from mentors, from gurus, you read in books, but it's like, oh, you need to be working on your business. And I didn't quite understand what that meant, because working on your business means that you may be working on the processes, you may be working on building the team, motivating the team, keeping your clients happy through systems, right? And there are certain things that we can use, especially now with AI. We can build tools, we can help cut down some of that process, fine. But as it relates to loneliness, this is the loneliness problem, right? We're so involved as entrepreneurs, we're so involved in the business that we're not actually on the business. And for me, one of the major shifts, I would say, is because I spent all that time pretty much alone in the middle of the night, as it is now. It's almost 9 p.m. here in Thailand where I am. And I had to learn to be okay with myself. When I was working on clients, building landing pages, running ad campaigns, looking at performance, looking at analytics, yes, it's just me sitting alone in a room, but my mind is busy on something external. And the work that I had to do, what I realized I needed to do, was to do work internally, to get comfortable with myself. And it wasn't something that just, oh, I realized that, oh, this is something I had to do, or this was work that I figured I needed to do because of maybe a video on YouTube that, pointed it out. And it made me realize, oh, lots of books that talk about, oh, you need to do inner work. Now, I've been I've been a very driven person all my life, and I've used my gut feeling a lot. And I think also what happens is you listen to a message, or you see a blog post, or you read an article, or now maybe ChatGPT or AI tells you something, And then your intuition, if your intuition is active, will pique its curiosity, will pique its interest, or will shine in a way where it's like, oh, here's a beacon. Here's something you need to look at. Here's something to pay attention to. And I've been really good in my life, not all my life, but I've been really good at noticing when my intuition was trying to tell me something. Even if it was from an external stimulus or somebody telling me something, it's like, oh wait, you know what? That's actually a pretty good idea. Now how do we work on that? And so how did I overcome loneliness to be comfortable with myself? It was one of those things where I, first of all, took responsibility for my life. I didn't have time for exercise. I didn't have time. I was getting to the point of being overweight. I was unhealthy. I wasn't moving. I wasn't eating well. You know how it is. You're an entrepreneur and you're working on stuff and you just order whatever takeaway, whatever fast food there is because it's 11 o'clock at night and the only thing that's available is McDonald's, right? So that was where it started. It's like, okay, if I want to have a better relationship with myself, I need to look after myself a little bit more. As you get older, you realize that, blood sugar is an issue, maybe hypertension is an issue. You go see the doctor for some reason, you get sick more too often. You start drinking alcohol a little bit more. You start smoking, or you smoke more than you used to. You're consuming more negative things in your life because you're trying to deal with the stress, and stress is the factor. And so it's like, okay, well, how do we find time to exercise? How do we find time to update ourselves personally? How do we find time to at least make friends, right? If that's the starting point, it's like, forget the exercise, forget all of those things. Like, how do you actually make friends? And here's a trick that I learned, or here's something that just happened as a byproduct of me connecting with people. It so happened that I was looking for clients, and I got on a call hoping that this person would become a client, but actually what they ended up doing for me, or what they ended up being for me, was more of a friend and a mentor. And so I was looking for business, but they were actually just looking to help me. And so this friend, Tom, who's now in Taiwan, he was like, hey, let's just have a call every couple of weeks. Right? I'm happy to coach you. Like, happy to see your progress, and we do it for free. And I was taken aback, and I was like, wait, why are you doing this for free? Like, I can't afford your services. I can't afford your coaching. Why are you helping me? And so we figured out a way that I could maybe help him with a couple of things, build a funnel, build a website, help him with a couple of ads. We did some work together in the beginning, but I think that was more of just a give and take situation that happened in the beginning. But at the end of the day, he just wanted to be my friend, and he just wanted to connect, and he just wanted to help me grow. And on a call one day, he was like, you need to get to the gym. You now have a few friends. You started speaking to somebody. You're speaking to me. But I think you need to get to the gym. And we set that as one of the goals. And for weeks, for months, maybe even for a whole year, I didn't actually get to the gym. It was a main goal that we spoke about every 2 weeks or every month. And he said to me, okay, well, how about you just put the gym shoes on? Just take a shower and just get the outfit on. And invariably what happened was I ended up walking to the gym, or getting to the gym somehow, or even doing some exercise at home. And that started making some changes. That started affecting my life, where I was like, oh, this actually feels good. I was somebody who exercised in the past, and I knew that I wanted to get back into exercise because of that feeling good thing that happens when you do exercise. And it wasn't so much about building muscle or getting into shape. It was just like, hey, let's do the thing because we liked doing it before, and it's something we want to do again. And this excuse of not having time, it's just not an excuse anymore. It should not be an excuse anymore. I was making decent money at that time, and I obviously had the time to speak to him for an hour every 2 weeks or so. And so he was like, well, what about putting another hour aside and just going to the gym or getting some exercise in, even if it's going for a walk? And so I started doing that. And he taught me that building relationships or creating friendships can be a thing that we do just as a byproduct of getting outside, of just going to places where people are congregating. And the gym is a great place because if you start developing your confidence in your body, and in your mind, then you can open up and you can start speaking to people, right? People will start noticing you because you're going there more often. People will say hello to you because, oh, here's a familiar face, right? They've seen you before. It's like, oh, you're back to the gym again. Nice, cool. And they make comments. People are generally friendly, especially here in Thailand. And so that's what was happening is I started to make friends and having a few conversations outside of home, outside of where I worked. And so, making friends became easier and working on my body became easier. And then the next progression was to start eating a little better because it's like, oh, what's the point of going to the gym if you're still going to eat McDonald's at 11 p.m. at night? Now, what does this have to do with loneliness? Well, when you start getting confident in yourself and you start realizing that actually getting out there, meeting people, and understanding how these things all play together, the loneliness starts to dissipate. It's never going to go away, but as a business owner, somebody who's really focused on a specific goal or a specific process, it's a process to build a business. It's not a goal to build a business. The goal is to make money in the business. The goal is to make the business successful. The process of building a business also involves exercise and making connections, building the team, having friendships, having a relationship with yourself, right? And so you're not lonely if you're comfortable being alone. You're never lonely if you're comfortable in your own skin. You're never lonely when you're just sitting on the sofa doing absolutely nothing and feeling okay. You're never lonely, even if you're in a crowd and you can't talk to anybody because you can't relate to anybody. You don't feel bad about being alone, about not being able to fit in, because you are yourself and you're confident in your own skin, you're confident in your own body, and you know what you've done. You know who you are. You know what you've worked on. And so if topics like the weather or politics or whatever don't vibe with you, there's no need to make small talk, because if that's just not interesting to you, then those people are probably not going to be interesting to you. They're probably interesting to others. Fine. They have a social circle. Fine. But if they don't jam with you, then so be it. You'll find your jam. You'll find your people. People like you will start to see you. They'll start to talk to you. And invariably, what I've realized is in the 10 years, now there's actually far more entrepreneurs walking around than ever before. Especially because I'm in Thailand and this is a hub for just creativity and people doing stuff online and building, followings and, doing business online, doing TikTok shop or doing some sort of trading, some sort of service. Maybe they have products online, whatever they're doing, there is online work happening. And that's okay. That's really good, actually. And it's going to get more and more over time. So that's what I want to say in this video is that you're feeling lonely because you're not okay with yourself and you're not confident in yourself. And so this is how you solve it. You start doing things for yourself, even if it feels selfish, even if your wife or if your girlfriend or if your sisters or daughters or whoever in your family or even your friends are saying, oh, you don't have time for me, but you're going to the gym. It's like, well, yeah, right? Prioritize what's most important. And you, as the founder, you, as the entrepreneur, if your clients are number one, well, I would suggest making yourself number one. Because when you make yourself number one, and this is what's happened to me, is that when I realized that I can take care of myself, then I realized that I could take care of others in a much better way. There's a reason why the safety messages that you hear on flights just before you take off say that you have to put your own mask on if there's an emergency and the gas masks come down. You have to take care of yourself first, and then you can help somebody else. The reason they say that is because only when you can breathe freely, that you can help somebody else breathe freely. So keep that in account. Now, the other thing that I realized as I started to grow my business was that the loneliness actually became more intense. The reason for that was because I realized that I wasn't working on it hard enough, or I wasn't putting enough focus on it. So what I did was start going to the gym a little bit more often, making it a little bit more serious. Instead of just putting the clothes on, oh, wait, let me get a trainer because then I can learn how to do the exercises as well. And then I build accountability into the process as well. Now, it's like my trainer doesn't get paid if I don't show up for the session. So I want him to be successful. I want to be successful. And so I want to show up for the exercise because, well, this is something that I'm paying for. And I want my trainer to also be compensated by the fact that, well, I'm able to afford a session. And therefore, he gets to grow his business or he gets to grow his income in that same way. So there's a give and take, or there's a, I'm giving and he's also giving. And so we're both benefiting from that process. And so then I built accountability with Tom as well. It's like, okay, well, these are the things that we're working on. And he holds me accountable every 2 weeks. It's like, okay, what have you done with this goal? You mentioned this the last time. What have you done? Where are you along this process? Right? We are focused on growth. We're focused on growing our community, building our brand, doing all of these things. And the other thing that I would say that's helped me a lot is just to feel gratitude all the time. Is, I wake up, and this is not a daily thing, but it happens often. Even right now, as I sit here, I'm feeling really grateful for the fact that it's Friday, that it's been a really busy week, but it's been a really productive week. I'm further along in terms of being able to put content out. I'm further along with my relationships. I've grown my relationships over the past couple of years, and I'm in a good spot. And my coach, Caleb, who maybe you'll meet on this YouTube channel at some point, or even on the podcast at some point, he's done an episode as well on the podcast in the past couple of years ago. He is a constant reminder to me about what I've achieved and how I'm living my life and how I've hacked the system, is what he says. It's really nice to have a friend and have a coach remind you of where you are and what you've done, not to bring up the past, but to bring up your success. Because when we're grateful, then we invariably create more success. We invariably create more gratefulness. We invariably create more empathy. Because if we stay grounded using gratefulness or staying in gratitude, then the ego doesn't get boosted. The ego doesn't feel inflated. And in some cases, sure, we can go off the rails and we can, oh, I'm not lonely anymore. I can go take on the world. Sure, okay, no problem. But it's nice to have somebody to talk to. It's nice to have somebody to bounce ideas off, even if those ideas are fancy or, too far-fetched. The goal of having a coach or the goal of having somebody to talk to is to not feel judged. Because this is what happens, and I should have probably mentioned this earlier in the conversation, is the relationships you have feel strained because most of the time people are judging you for not spending time with them, for not being included in the conversation, for not sharing the same topics or talking about the same topics that they do. And it's difficult. You end up leaving people behind. And it's difficult because you end up leaving people behind. And it's okay. It's okay to leave people behind because I believe that people come to our lives for a reason. There's a start date and there's a date to everything, right? A person starts a relationship with you, whether it's just a conversation in the gym the first time, and then, maybe you go on a couple of dates, or maybe you even just become friends and you go out for drinks. And at some point, that person is going to go away, whether they just naturally dissolve out of your life because, one, you don't have the time, they don't have the time, or maybe their interests are not aligned, or whatever the case may be, or they die, or you die. It's inevitable. It's going to happen. And holding on to people, like, that's a whole nother story. That's a whole nother level of need, right? That's a whole attachment conversation that we can have maybe in another episode. But at the end of the day, it's not your responsibility to maintain or keep those relationships. You only keep the relationships that you want to keep, that you feel is providing value to you, that's providing you with a pain-free way of keeping the relationship going. And it's got to be give and take. It's got to be, you know, your friend wants to be in touch with you because they care for you, because they love you, because they love talking to you, because they love spending time with you, and because maybe you're contributing to their lives. Hopefully, you're contributing to their lives in some way as well. And that's the litmus test for a true relationship, I would say. And I'll end on this, is that it's not to say that you need more friends. Maybe you just need to change the quality of your friends. Or maybe there's a certain group of friends that are just very judgmental and make you feel like crap. And it's not fun hanging out with them because they're always judging you for who you are and what you're doing and what you're trying to achieve. So cut them out and go find friends who actually value you for who you are, who you can actually have a proper conversation with, who you can actually trust, who you can actually sit down and share your secrets, share your insecurities, share your problems with, and maybe they actually help you solve some of those things because maybe they've been through it, or maybe they can at least talk you through what you're going through without any judgment or without any resentment or without any jealousy, right? That's the true benefit of having a good friend. Now, otherwise, there's just no point in having them around. I would say it's the same with family. It's like don't hang out with family members who are just idiotic and who just hate who you are. Even though, behind the back, maybe they're saying shitty things about you, but in front of your face, they're just nice and pleasant and it's contradictory. It's like, no, you don't want to hang out with people who are superficial, who are just not true, just not authentic. So loneliness is one of those things where you're okay with yourself, then you're okay with people and you're selective. You filter the people who are in your life, you build relationship with the people who you want to, you work on your business because it's something you love doing and it's fun doing, and you monitor your time. You monitor how you're spending your time, how you're spending your energy, right? Energy consumption is probably, I would say, the most important part because if you're feeling exhausted all the time, then you got to figure out like who are the people that are taking your energy away from you, and stay away from those energy vampires. Could be somebody on your team. Just replace them with somebody who actually is contributing energy to the system, contributing energy to your clients, contributing energy to you. Because there's no point in hanging out with people again who are just going to drag you down. So yeah, if you've resonated with this, if you understand this, then you might see a link in the description. And basically, I'm inviting you to Growth Circle. Growth Circle is a place where, you have a couple problems in your life. Maybe you have a couple problems in your business, and just come hang out. We do a call every week. It's starting like soon, right? This is a new community. It's something that is growing, something that I'm focused on. And because you listened to this episode and you've gotten to this point of the episode, I'm inviting you. I'd like you to come hang out, have conversations with me and Caleb. You're going to meet Caleb, you're going to meet a couple of people, you're going to meet other entrepreneurs who are struggling in the same way. And the reason I put this community together, or I'm putting this community together, is because I want to solve this loneliness problem, not just for myself, but also for you. Right? I've solved a lot of it for myself, but I'd love to help others solve it as well because it's a real problem. And loneliness can actually be the bottleneck. Loneliness can be one of the things that's holding you back from growing your business to the point that you are actually feeling successful, to growing your bank balance, to building the relationships and the connections that you actually want. Loneliness is a big problem. And I want to help solve that if I can in this peer level group called Growth Circle. There's a link. It's hosted on School. As I said, we have calls every week. Bring your problems. Let's discuss them. And let's see if we can help each other out. That's all it is. So if you enjoyed this episode, subscribe, leave a review on Apple or wherever you're listening to this episode. If you're on YouTube, then, post a comment below. Let me know what's your experience been as an entrepreneur on this journey. And if you're inclined to, come hang out at Growth Circle and see how we can help each other. Good. Take care. Enjoy.